Lyanna Stark, the face that launched a rebellion to end a dynasty. For centuries, the Targaryens had ruled over the Seven Kingdoms until the fall of Aerys Targaryen II.
Burn them all!
Which seen Robert Baratheon take the Iron Throne, and he did it all for his betrothed Lyanna, the Wolf Maid, the She-Wolf, daughter of Lord Rickard Stark, Warden of the North. Lyanna was certainly of noble blood, of wolf blood. Her story ends in tragedy, but it's a story worth telling. She had a life of such meaning and promise, and in today's video, I'm going to take you through the entire life of Lyanna, from her early childhood up until her untimely death. Welcome to Game of Thronelore. This is the life of Lyanna Stark. Lyanna was born in Winterfell in 267 AC. She was the only daughter of Lord Rickard Stark and Lady Lyanna Stark. Lyanna had two older brothers, Brandon and Eddard, and a younger brother named Benjen. Although spending some time with her brothers in Winterfell in their early years, both Brandon and Eddard were fostered at young ages and did not return to Winterfell for a number of years, which, without their perhaps calming influence, led to Lyanna developing a rather wild and outgoing personality, wolf's blood as her father called it. Lyanna is described by most people as beautiful. A key word there is most people. Robert Baratheon would argue her to be the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, yet if we were to listen to Maester Yandel's description of her as a wild and boyish young thing, with none of the Princess Elia's delicate beauty, one could argue that Lyanna divides opinion. Even Kevin Lannister recalls her as having a wild beauty about her, which means that the inhabitants of different kingdoms had their own preferences on what they believed was an attractive woman. Lyanna was of slim frame. According to Eddard, his daughter Arya, with her brown hair, long face and grey eyes, resembles Lyanna in appearance. It is also said by some that Margaery Tyrell greatly resembled Lyanna, so much that there was a plot from Highgarden to actually replace Queen Cersei with Margaery, hoping that Robert would see such a resemblance himself. Ned, however, had said they looked nothing alike. Lyanna was strong-willed and opinionated. She loved flowers, especially winter roses, of which she was known to adore the flower's scent. She loved horse riding and was viewed as a gifted rider, with Roose Bolton describing her as half a horse herself due to her frequently being seen on her steed. As I mentioned earlier, Lyanna's older brother Eddard was fostered at a young age. He was sent to the Eyrie to be fostered by Lord Jon Arryn of the Vale. It was there that he befriended his fellow ward Robert Baratheon, and after many years at the Vale, Eddard brought Robert's suit to Winterfell with the hope to marry Lyanna, and Lord Rickard, seeing him as a fine suitor, agreed to betroth his daughter to the young Lord of Storm's End. Lyanna, although pleased, confided on the night of her betrothal announcement to Eddard that she believed Robert would never be able to keep to one bed. She had even heard that Robert had an illegitimate daughter in the Vale, and which, because he bared witness, Eddard could not deny. He attempted to persuade her that what Robert had done was indeed before their betrothal was ever significant, and that he would truly love her. But Lyanna had a disheartening response, telling her brother that love could not change a man's nature. Lyanna was present at the tourney at Harrenhal in 281 AC and later became a centre point of controversy at the tournament's end. The winner of this tournament would get to crown a woman of his choice the Queen of Love and Beauty. While there, Lyanna happened upon Howland Reed, who was being bullied by three young squires, none older than 15. She ran at them and attacked them all with a tourney sword. The bullies scattered, and Lyanna took Howland back to her tent, where she cleaned his wounds and bound them with linen. She then introduced him to her brothers Brandon, Eddard and Benjen. That evening, a feast was held to celebrate the tourney, and Lyanna persuaded Howland to attend the feast, as he was highborn and had as much right to attend as anyone. During the feast, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, a noted and talented musician, performed a sad and beautiful song that made Lyanna weep. However, when Benjen teased her for crying, she angrily poured wine over his head. Prince Rhaegar eventually won the tournament, But instead of crowning his own wife, Princess Elia Martell, as the Queen of Love and Beauty, Rhaegar shocked those present by presenting the laurel of blue winter roses to Lyanna, placing it in her lap with the tip of his lance. That very moment was described as when all the smiles died. Brandon Stark was furious. He believed Rhaegar's actions to have been a slight upon Lyanna's honour and highly disrespectful to Lyanna's betrothed Robert Baratheon. Some people say that Robert laughed at Rhaegar's actions, claiming that Rhaegar had only paid Lyanna her due. However, those close to Robert claim that he brooded over the insult and grew resentful of Rhaegar henceforth. The next year, Lyanna came face to face with Rhaegar 10 leagues from Harrenhal and was taken by him with the help of Sir Arthur Dayne and Sir Oswald Went. When her brother Brandon, on his way to Riverrun for his very own wedding, learned about his sister's disappearance, he immediately changed course towards King's Landing, accompanied by several companions. When at the Red Keep, he roared for Rhaegar to come out and die, though Rhaegar was not present. However, King Aerys II had Brandon and his companions arrested and charged them with treason, accusing them of plotting to murder the Crown Prince. Aerys summoned their fathers to court, supposedly to answer for the charge against their sons. Lord Rickard Stark demanded a trial by combat, and though the king granted him the request, he chose fire as his champion. Lord Rickard was suspended from the rafters over a blazing fire while dressed in his armour, while Brandon, attached to a device which tightened a cord around his neck whenever he moved, was forced to watch as his father was slowly cooked inside his armour. Brandon strangled himself in an attempt to reach the long sword, and when King Aerys next demanded the heads of Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark, Lord Jon Arryn responded by raising his banners in revolt, starting Robert's rebellion. Opinions on Rhaegar's motivation in taking Lyanna differ. According to Robert Baratheon, Rhaegar raped Lyanna hundreds of times. This is repeated by Eddard's young son Bran Stark. However, Barristan Selmy is convinced that Prince Rhaegar loved his lady Lyanna. Daenerys Targaryen believes that Rhaegar had stolen Lyanna away from her betrothed, and when she herself is about to marry, she thinks that if her paramour really loved her, he would come and carry her off at sword point, as Rhaegar carried off his northern girl. According to Viserys Targaryen, Rhaegar had fought and died for the woman he loved, something which his sister Daenerys also believes. However, Viserys also believes that Rhaegar had simply not been happy with his marriage to Elia, which had led him to taking Lyanna in the first place. Cersei Lannister, who was infatuated with Rhaegar, had also similar beliefs. She is convinced that Rhaegar would have never have looked twice at the Wolf Girl if he had been satisfied with his own wife. Even Cersei's uncle Kevin Lannister believes that if Aerys had just accepted the proposal from Tywin to marry Cersei to Rhaegar, the war might have been avoided, as Cersei had been much more beautiful than Lyanna and would have been able to give Rhaegar the sons he had always wanted, something which Princess Elia Martell could not. The war, led by Lyanna's betrothed Robert, her brother Eddard, and their foster father Lord Jon Arryn, lasted close to a year. Lyanna's exact whereabouts during this time are unknown. Rhaegar himself could not be found either, for a very large part of the war, though he finally returned from the south after King Aerys Targaryen II dispatched Sir Gerald Hightower, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, to find him. Robert and Eddard then faced Prince Rhaegar and the royal army at the Trident, where Robert slew Rhaegar in single combat and the rebels defeated the royal army. A fortnight later, the sack of King's Landing officially ended the war, though Lyanna still remained missing and the last opposition still had to be dealt with. From King's Landing, Eddard Stark rode south to the Stormlands to lift siege of Storm's End. From there, he rode to a place Rhaegar was said to have named the Tower of Joy, located in the Red Mountains of Dorne. Eddard brought only 6 companions with him to the tower, and when they arrived they found the 3 remaining loyalist members of Aerys Targaryen's Kingsguard, Sir Arthur Dayne, Sir Oswald Went, and Sir Gerald Hightower. The men met in battle, and only Eddard and Howland Reed survived. Inside the tower, Eddard found Lyanna in a bed of blood dying. His sister died in a room that smelled of blood and roses. A fever had taken her strength, and her voice had been as faint as a whisper. There was fear in her eyes while she called for Ned to promise her something.
Promise me, Ned.
When her brother gave his word, the fear left her. She smiled, and her fingers clutched his own in a tight grip. Lyanna died shortly thereafter. Eddard was still holding her as she gave up her hold on life, and rose petals slipped from her palm, dead and black. Later, Howland Reed found Eddard still holding the corpse. He managed to separate the hands of the living man and the dead girl, though Eddard had no recollection of what happened after Lyanna died. It is currently unknown what promise Lyanna extracted from Eddard and what had caused her fear. Lyanna's last words, "Promise me, Ned," would haunt Eddard, who had to pay a price in order to keep his promise to his sister for the rest of his life. Although it's not been revealed in the books as of yet, it has been revealed in the TV show, however, that the promise Ned kept was the true identity of Jon Snow, real name Aegon Targaryen. Ned also promised to look after him, and as I've said in a previous video, it's most likely looking like the TV show's reveal will match that of the books, but it's very important to respect the fact that the books are considered canon and the reveal isn't exactly official until it's on paper before us to read. At the time of her death, Lyanna had just been 16 years of age. He transported Lyanna's bones back from Dorne to Winterfell. According to him, Lyanna had wanted to be buried beside her father and her brother. Her tomb lies in the crypts of Winterfell, beside that of Lord Rickard and Brandon Stark. A statue of Lyanna has been carved into the stone of her tomb, though Robert Baratheon feels the stonemason failed to capture her true beauty. While only the kings and lords of Winterfell are supposed to have statues in their likeness, not their family members, both Lyanna and Brandon were given a statue by Eddard because he wished to honour his beloved siblings. Eddard also brought flowers to Lyanna's tomb whenever possible. Lyanna's death left deep wounds in both Eddard and Robert. Ned was haunted for the remainder of his life with visions of Lyanna on her deathbed, wishing his sister had survived, while trying to deal with the fact that she seemed to let go of her hold on life. Robert, although criticised by Ned for only seeing Lyanna's beauty and nothing else, seems to make a strong argument that he did see more to her, as he never truly got over her death. He held on to his hatred of the Targaryens as perhaps in his heart. Such a hatred actually kept Lyanna's spirit alive within him. He never wanted to marry anyone else, settling for Cersei Lannister in order to provide an heir and please the realm. In my opinion, Lyanna Stark's legacy will always be remembered as the she-wolf who drew out a stag to war. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your support. Everyone, notifications of uploads are more important than ever. So please, if you haven't already, turn those notifications on to make sure you're notified the moment my video goes live. Making videos is what I love to do. It's my dream and my passion. However, it does cost time and money to produce this content. So if you have $1 to spare to support me on Patreon in exchange for some exclusive unseen content, then you can click the Patreon link below or at the end of this video. Please only support me if you can afford it. And make sure to follow me on Instagram at InstaDNJ and on Twitter at PotterFolklore. Check out my other videos appearing on screen, and please make sure, most importantly, to hit that subscribe button. Thanks again everyone, and please have a great day.